Joel Skousen is with us this hour. He is the editor-in-chief and founder of World Affairs Brief, one of the premier publications on the Internet. Comes out once a week. We'll tell you how to get a free complimentary copy. Pardon the redundancy there. So stay tuned. Hello, Joel. Welcome back. Thanks for being here tonight.
My pleasure. I'm glad you were able to accommodate me tonight. We must remember that when the original so-called pro-EU president took control before, and his president, this was Yushchenko, and his prime minister was Yulia Tymoshenko. They didn't clear out any of the corruption that was in Ukraine. They didn't dismiss any of the communist cadres.
It got worse.
It got worse. Cronyism and the oligarchs rose just as they did in the old Soviet Union. And there was this, people were very, very skeptical. They were very, very disgusted with liberty, with their independence, because it was the same old people running the show. The same old regulations, the same old, you have to bribe everyone to get anything done in Ukraine. So what was different? And so it's not hard, he said, to get the people to say, I want to be free. And that's why the referendum that was passed overwhelmingly was for to be independent, not to be with Russia. That would not have passed, he said. Now, it will probably pass now, because the Kiev government has sabotaged this whole operation, genocide to use the word. Clearly they had sent in cadres that were untrained, thugs, other people driving around as part of the, a new political movement there in darkened SUVs, shooting up eastern neighborhoods, telling people that they're going to be able to speak Russian or any other language they want, and then that was Poroshenko when he was campaigning, and then saying, no, we're all going to make you speak Ukrainian. I mean, these are types of things that you wouldn't do if you're trying to win the hearts and minds of people.
Right. Well, Poroshenko is lying about as much as Obama does. He's right there. He's reversed himself on many things.
He was put in basically as the candy king. He's the chocolate oligarch there in Ukraine, but all of his contacts are in Moscow. And this guy is on friendly terms with everybody in Moscow. And so he's playing both sides, at least, playing the pro-EU thing. But he has always had most of his friendships and his contacts with other oligarchs deep into Moscow. And so, as I've made the point on many times in your show, I think, in fact, that this is the entire thing is a charade. The entire thing about the opposition is a charade, that the coup was a Russian-engineered coup with obviously plenty of help with the globalists trying to foment unrest. I mean, there was legitimate unrest against Yanukovych. I mean, he was unpopular with the people in the West. He was going to make the play with Russia, and they wanted to have some contact.
Well, let me ask a question, Joel, please. I understand exactly what you're saying, a charade. I would ask, why? Why go through all this? What's the point? Why make people suffer? Why kill people? Why do such hideous things? They're rounding up all the young men in Slavyansk, 21 to 35. They're going to filtration camps. Some of them will never be seen again. We know this. We know the Rand Corporation. I don't know if you've studied that or not yet. I imagine you have, because you're on everything. But I mean, that's where the blueprint came from. And okay, a charade. And I again go back. Why?
The question is first of all, the question is whose charade is it? Is this the globalist charade or is it Russia's charade? Okay, and most everybody on
you got Rand in there somewhere.
That's right.
Rand Paul, but
it is complex. It's not simple to understand. We have to remember that, and this is the general theory I put forth for the past 10 years in my World Affairs Brief, and we're seeing it played out. It's not capable of proving, because we're dealing with two conspiracies: a Russian conspiracy to take back the former Soviet states, and to, for your listeners who haven't heard me before, the fall of the Soviet Union was a carefully crafted deception. The Communist Party simply went underground. Putin and the KGB and the communists are still running the show, always have been running the show. They created United Russia and all the other parties.
Correct.
In like manner, in every single former Soviet state, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Romania, Hungary, they had Soviet agents play the role of anti-communists. Lech Walesa, Solidarity, was a communist agent, playing the other side, playing the Union opposition. Václav Havel, the champion of the Velvet Revolution, a communist agent, playing as if he was pro-Western. Ion Iliescu, who took over after Ceausescu of Romania was ousted, and he was a communist agent. In Ukraine, I'm convinced that Yulia Tymoshenko and her crowd, who were profaning to be pro-Western, were actually pro-Russian. They were actually working for Russia, and in doing so, you see, in each case they protect, whether it's in Poland, Czechoslovakia, which is now the Czech Republic and Slovakia, Romania, in Bulgaria, they protect the communist cadres that were still in place. Those were never been removed. They control the opposition parties, except for the smallest ones. They don't bother with them. They let them. There are some libertarian-oriented groups and some others that are legitimate. But most of the opposition parties are fake in every one of these countries. So what's the motivation? It is Russia fakes its own demise so that it can gain extreme Western trade, and Western oil companies built up the entire Russian and gas oil industry. We're the ones in the West that provided him all this income he's getting to rebuild his military machine. And what's in it? Why are the globalists doing this?
Why would he? Exactly. Well, why would he? Where does it go from here? Donetsk is being encircled. Slavyansk has fallen. All the men have been taken away, or are being in the process of being taken away. This is not looking good for those people.
Well, remember, if I'm right, though, about Russia pretending they're doing demise, and they actually pulled off this coup, and remember, the two major reasons this had to be a Russian coup in Ukraine is that the police suddenly melted away and let the coup have the run of the palace and all the government buildings.
That's right.
No one but the Russians could have given those orders. And then the next day, the Party of Regents, controlled by the pro-Russian sector, ousted Yanukovych, their own leader. And who gave them, the orders to do that? The opposition couldn't have ordered them to do that.
Okay. How do we overlay the Orange Revolution with what happened in Kiev that you're talking about? Is there any mechanism that can be compared? Because the Orange Revolution was a George Soros.
The Orange Revolution was just like the Velvet Revolution in Czechoslovakia, run by a communist agent who is championing and ginning up the appropriate desire for liberty of the people in Czechoslovakia, and the same thing in Ukraine. Most people wanted to be free from communism. And so you hijack the revolution by getting in there saying, I am the champion of freedom for Ukraine. And then they elect you, and you do nothing. You don't give them real freedom. You say you're free, but the bureaucracy still controls you and all of those things. But what do? Here's the basic thing. Russia wins by creating this phony coup. By what? Poisoning the people against freedom. Poisoning the people because the freedom people, like Poroshenko and Tymoshenko, are corrupt. And so people in their cynicism turn back to Russia, who puts on the front, I am now the champion of liberty. I'm the champion against these globalists. We even have people on the right wing in the United States thinking that Putin is the champion because our government is so bad. And our government is bad. But believe me, Putin is no champion of liberty. He's just playing us and playing the side. And believe me, we've been trying to set the stage as the bully of the world now for the past decade and a half. And it's really working. And someday it's going to come back to bite us. But remember, the globalists want this war as much as Putin wants it, because this is the chance for the globalists. If we can get Russia and China to attack our military, then our leaders can come out of their bunkers and say to a devastated American military, our only chance now of salvation is to join a militarized global government with militarized power, new currency, solves all the debt issues. We start all over, and war gives us cover, and our leaders are still the heroes because the war is the culprit, not them. And that's where I think we're headed.
You want to say that again? I understood it, but that was quite a scenario you just laid out there.
I'm saying there has to be a reason, Jeff, why our globalists in our government, which have gone clear back to the beginning of the century, of the last century, have been building up Russia and China's enemies ever since their inception.
Okay.
We built up, we gave us Cuba, we undermined Batista, we gave the Sandinistas Nicaragua, we brought China to power by cutting off aid to Chiang Kai-shek.
Yeah.
So there has to be a reason to explain why these globalists are building this enemy, and it's because you can't get to a militarized, tyrannical global government without another war.
Mm-hmm.
World War I failed to give us the League of Nations. World War II gave us the United Nations, but no teeth, no military, no taxing power, no police power. And they need one more war, war to supposedly end all wars, but will end up. And I think one of the reasons that I've come to this conclusion is because of PDD 60. This is Presidential Decision Directive 60, 1997.
Mm-hmm.
President Bill Clinton tells our nuclear missile, or it wasn't just him, this was the globalist in his administration who wrote this, told our missile forces, don't rely on launch on warning, be prepared to absorb a nuclear first strike and retaliate afterwards. Now, that to me is proof of where they're heading with this. Telling our military, don't think you're going to get permission to launch on warning. You may not. So prepare your military forces to retaliate after absorbing a nuclear first strike. General Butch Neal of the Marine Corps said, retaliate with what? And he was mad as hell, and I would be too, because this is literally suicide. But I think that our globalists come out of their bunker after our military's been decapitated and said, oh, the Russians and Chinese deceived us. We didn't know this was happening. We thought that they were going to be our allies. But now that our military is decapitated, the West has only one choice. That is to form a global government.
Well, and the entire northern
military
hemisphere is covered in radiation. Fukushima is bad enough.
Well, but you've got to remember that Fukushima is a lot worse in the terms of its long-term permanency of radiation than nuclear war.
I understand.
2 to 3 weeks and radiation is dissipating from nuclear strikes. And so it's very survivable. You don't want to be subjected to that radiation. That's why I tell people you need to prepare with fallout shelter. It's not that expensive. But remember this. Can you imagine the panic in Europe, in the United States, if our military is taken down and the Russians and Chinese say, now, if you want this to happen to the rest of you, just try to fight. But they'll try to blackmail the West into submission. And our leaders come out of their bunkers because they know this is coming. They're not building bunkers a half a mile underground for some terrorist attack. They know this is coming. That's why they want it, because it's the only way to just get flat-out apathetic approval, do anything to save us, American people will say. Forget about our liberties. I mean, look what 9/11 did. Government operation from beginning to end. And people laid down and said, whatever it takes to fight this war on terror, and we've had this tremendous loss of liberty ever since. And think what the mother of all terrorism will do, which is a preemptive nuclear strike on our military. It will make everybody completely panicked into saying, government save us. And they have a plan.
What's a little footnote in the Ukraine crisis now is the location there of Russian Satan missiles. They're in silos, they're in the ground, and they're maintained by Ukrainian crews. And there was a story about that Russia's missiles safe, being maintained around the clock as normal, as usual, by their Ukrainian crews. Now, there are Russians there too, of course, but there are a lot of Ukrainians.
Well, that's
involved.
why this is a charade. I mean, Russia still runs both sides in Ukraine, and what they're trying to do basically is have a constant excuse to intervene and continue to poison the people. I mean, the mission of the Kiev government, supposedly pro-Western, is to poison the hearts and minds of Eastern Ukraine so they'll never want anything to do with NATO and the West again. And they're doing just that.
Well, they look at Crimea and they say, why them? Why not us?
That's right. And as I say, it'd be different. If the Kiev government could win the hearts and minds, to give them their...
No, that's over. That's all past.
It's over. It'll never happen, and that's exactly why Putin isn't intervening. because the Kiev government's already doing a good job at poisoning the people. Why should he intervene and force NATO to take action?